Near the end of yesterday's Bible Answer Man broadcast, Ryan, calling from Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada, asked me about the criticisms that Bart Ehrman has raised against the reliability of the Bible. So I thought I'd visit some of those criticisms with you because Bart Ehrman has made a cottage industry out of publicizing those criticisms of the Bible and saying that he has been able to take those who come into his classroom as Christians and, well, rob them of their faith, quite frankly. He's the professor of religious studies and former chair of the department at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and he forwards a plethora of accusations against the Bible and against its authors. Of one thing he is certain: God has not spoken, and the Bible is not an authentic, reliable source for faith and practice. And while still a student, he says, at Princeton Theological Seminary, he submitted a paper that attempted to resolve a supposed difficulty in Mark chapter 2. The gospel writer Mark records Jesus saying that David ate the shewbread in the days of Abiathar, the high priest, although the Old Testament account indicates David ate the showbread when Abiathar's father Ahimelech served as high priest. And while reading Ehrman's paper, his professor decided to scribble a simple comment in the margin. And that comment was that, well, maybe Mark just made a mistake. So after contemplation, Bart Ehrman came to the realization that his solution was indeed a mistake. It was a stretch, and he concluded that, well, Mark probably was wrong. And that epiphany, says Ehrman, opened up the floodgates. Maybe if Jesus says later in Mark chapter 4 that the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds on the earth, maybe I don't need to come up with a fancy explanation for how the mustard seed is the smallest of all seeds when I know full well that it's not. And maybe these mistakes apply to bigger issues such as the false prophecy of a alleged Messiah who thought that he was going to come back to earth and bring an end to earth within a generation. So Ehrman deems the very manuscripts preserving the biblical New Testament to be flawed. And he reasons that we do not have any original autographs, but possess only copies of copies, centuries removed from the originals, which contain errors in thousands and thousands of places, such that there are more differences among our manuscripts than there are words in the New Testament. Thus, just as human scribes had copied and changed the text of Scripture, so too had human authors originally written the text of Scripture. And thus, he concludes, this is a human book from beginning to end. The copyists, well, they were animated by virulent anti-Semitic hatred and were forging manuscripts. They were copying manuscripts that were forged in the first place. And the contention of his book, Forged, Writing in the Name of God, was just that. What he's saying is that the biblical authors are not who we think they are. They were forgers, and he seeks to convince his ever-growing cadre of devotees that the Bible, thus, is a dishonest book that is littered with deceptions, littered with errors, and even contains, as he puts it, outright lies. Well, eventually, says Ehrman, I came to realize that the Bible not only contains untruths or accidental mistakes, it also contains what almost anyone would call are lies, and the use of deception to promote the truth may well be considered one of the most unsettling ironies of the early Christian tradition. So again, what I thought I would do in the next few days, as time permits, is go over some of these alleged contradictions, including this alleged contradiction with respect to Abiathar and his father. Ahimelech. So I'll go over those, and as I said, I have given answers to those questions in many different forums, including my book, Has God Spoken? But again, Ryan raises a very, very good question. The reason that question is so good, once again, is because Bart Ehrman has sold millions of books. He's made a cottage industry out of robbing people of their faith, and he's done so on false pretenses, quite frankly. He ought to know better. Some of his arguments are quite simply lame. They sound good at first blush, but if you look at it with a little more depth, you find out that the questions have, the objections that he raises have no real substance to them whatsoever. Again, my book, Has God Spoken? Available through the ministry of the Christian Research Institute. When you get a copy, all the proceeds, 100%, go to the ministry of the Christian Research Institute. And when you join CRI's monthly support team, I'd be pleased to personalize a copy to you, a family member, or a friend.